G'day, Mark Screen here. Now, just recently I was at a men's breakfast and one of the guys was talking about how he never had to put up with, he never had a moment like it says in the 23rd Psalm where you had to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, And I was kind of reminded, we live in a land of plenty here in the West, and I was kind of reminded at the same time of verse 5 in Psalm 23. And Psalm 23 verse 5 says, you have prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil and my cup overflows. So probably about three things I want to cover here is that if you read that, God has already prepared things that we need in advance. And I actually personally think that God has let it happen that people like me and our, people I live with in the West to be plentiful. He has a plan for everyone's life, but He's resourced us in a way that works on us, but it's meant to be a blessing to others. And in the fact that He has this promise here, He knows what we're going to need, what capacity for what He thinks we are meant to do. And He knows the kind of person that we're meant to become, who we're going to be, and the kind of impact that we're going to have in other people's lives. Now, it's inevitable if you decide to go and put your faith in God that you'll have opposition. Anybody who makes a commitment to something always has some form of opposition. But when we pledge allegiance to God, well, there is one plain enemy of God, that's Satan. And he's not going to when we commit to God, He's not going to be happy when we put our faith in Him. And in the Christian sense, put our faith in Him through Jesus. But God, according to the Bible, created us through Jesus, and He let Jesus come into this world to be a sacrifice for the one thing that separates us from God, which is sin. And then when Jesus had lived His life here 2,000 years ago, went back to heaven, He poured out His Spirit, the Holy Spirit, on the world, which is a promise that He made through the prophet Joel that we see if you read Joel 2, we see that promise that He was going to pour out His Spirit on all men, or all mankind, or humanity, whatever way you want to call it. So God has our back. Now, if God has a purpose and a plan for our life, and when this psalm's written by David, and he's talking about being anointed with oil. That means that's what they do to kings. But it's really about what we're called. What's at the purpose that we are called by God, and a God who has chosen to create us and have a plan for us and a purpose for us. Most of the New Testament's written by a guy called Paul, and some of his writings to the churches that he started are written from Rome in prison. Now, I don't know when Ephesians was written, but he says here in the letter he wrote to the church in Ephesus that we know in the Bible as the book of Ephesians. Ephesians 4 verse 1. It says, "As a prisoner for the Lord, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling that you have received." So if we commit to God and we keep walking every day with God, and we listen to God, we're gonna hear what He's planned for our life, that He's already prepared, like the meal before, prepared in the presence of our enemies, like David had written. Now, I mean, when you look at Paul, when he went to Ephesus, he was actually given 2 commands. Talk to the Jewish people so they could talk about God and Jesus. When they reneged on that deal, he was given a command to go straight to the people who weren't Jewish. And in Ephesus, after about 3 months, he spoke, he rented a hall called the Hall of Tyrannus and spoke about the things of God for nearly 2 years. And that whole situation was so connected that everybody in the region heard about what God had done through Jesus. And so, God involves us in ministering to others. He wants us to be part of the plan, part of the solution, and that is to restore what's been lost. The connection that was broken at the Garden of Eden, and He wants us to be connected with Him for eternity. So He's going to work on all of us at the same time. He'll be doing something in you, something in your friends, but it'll all be connected. Somebody else's weakness will be where He can transform them and you at the same time. He knows what we're capable of. He prepares us. Sometimes our hardship are just hard training in order to have the capacity and the capability, the spiritual maturity to be a blessing to other people. So, even though this is a broad concept, our calling, if we listen to God day by day, will have great detail. And we'll see time and time again how God has worked in our life. Now, as we work that out, I want to pose this question to you. Who asks you questions about Christianity and about the Bible? It may not actually be people at church. It may be people at your work. That's what my experience is, that people in my sport and people at my work, they're the ones who have actually asked me biblical questions. And we can't lose sight of these opportunities that don't look like opportunities. But as we make choices in that's going to dictate where we work, where we live, all kinds of things. That might cost us something. Any great commitment costs something. And it's actually a price worth paying, because we get the benefit of the person that we're meant to be. All of this is something that we're meant to be, that we have been given, and we continue to be given that if we follow God. We need to make sure that we accept this with thankfulness and humility, not arrogance, certainly not gloating, because gloating doesn't get us anywhere. But just remember this, that God has our back. We just have to put our faith in Him. Trust Him through the times of waiting, And remember that we're meant to, all this is meant to strengthen us, not weaken us. It's meant to build us in the capacity we need for the next season. As I leave you today, I want you to think about what your calling is, what the detail is, what opportunities are going to lie in front of you, and what's the cost. And I know the cost will be worth it. I look forward to seeing what God has in store for all of us. Think on these things and let Him guide your life. We'll see you in the next video.